My name is Emma Lawson. I'm 36, and for most of my life, I thought I understood what love was supposed to look like. A warm home in the suburbs. A husband who provided. A quiet life where nothing ever really went wrong. From the outside, I had all that. 12 years of marriage to Mark. A man who was calm, kind in his own way, and steady. Everyone told me I was lucky. They said stability was rare. That I should be grateful. But what they never saw was the silence that filled our house. The way our conversations had turned into small, polite exchanges. The way our smiles felt rehearsed. The way our love had turned into something that looked alive but wasn't. At night, I often sat by the living room window, staring at the lights from the houses across the street, wondering if anyone else felt as lonely as I did. The city would hum softly in the distance, and I would ask myself the same question. Is this it? Is this all love becomes after time? When I started a new job at a marketing firm downtown, I didn't expect anything to change. I thought it was just a chance to do something different, to fill my days with something other than quiet disappointment. And then I met Ryan Carter. He was in his late 30s. Brown eyes that carried a calm warmth. A voice that always sounded steady, even when the room was chaotic. He had a laugh that made you forget what you were worried about. He wasn't loud, and he didn't try too hard. But the way he listened made you feel like you mattered. Like your words actually meant something. Our first real conversation happened by the coffee machine. I had spilled sugar on the counter and muttered under my breath. Ryan chuckled softly and handed me a napkin. It happens to the best of us, he said. It was such a small moment, but something about it stayed with me. Over the next few weeks, we worked together on projects, deadlines, brainstorms, meetings that stretched late into the evening. It was all work at first, until it wasn't. Somewhere between those long hours and quiet lunches, I began to notice the shift. The way my heart quickened when he stood too close. The way I started checking the clock, hoping to see him again. He made me laugh. He noticed when I was quiet. He paid attention in ways Mark hadn't in years. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. One evening, while reviewing a campaign on his laptop, he leaned in closer. His arm brushed mine. I caught the scent of his cologne, light and clean. My breath caught, and my hands trembled as I reached for my coffee. I told myself it was nothing, just tiredness, just work. But deep down I knew. That night, I drove home in silence. The rain streaked across my windshield, and the city lights blurred. I replayed every second with Ryan. The way his eyes lingered. The warmth in his voice. The ease of being near him. I whispered to myself, "You're married, Emma. You can't feel this way." But my heart didn't listen. When I walked in, Mark was sitting on the couch scrolling through his phone. He looked up briefly. "How was work?" "It was fine," I said. And that was it. He didn't notice the silence that followed. He didn't notice the tears I blinked away as I hung my coat. That night, I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror. My reflection looked tired. Not just from the day, but from years of waiting to be noticed. I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. The next morning, I found myself dressing more carefully, choosing lipstick I hadn't worn in months. I told myself it was for confidence, but I knew the truth. It was for him. When I arrived at work, Ryan was already there. He looked up, smiled softly, and for a moment, the world felt brighter. I was standing at the edge of something dangerous, and I didn't know if I had the strength to step back. Then came the night that changed everything. The company had organized a dinner downtown. It was raining again, the streets glowing under reflections of headlights and neon. I wore a black dress that had been hanging untouched in my closet for years. When I walked in, Ryan's eyes found me instantly. The entire evening we spoke little, but our glances carried everything unspoken. When the dinner ended, he offered to walk me to my car. We walked in silence, our steps slow, the rain falling softly around us. Halfway down the street, Ryan stopped. His voice was quiet. "Emma, I don't want to make things complicated, but I can't ignore this anymore." My heart stopped. I turned to face him. The rain fell between us, but I couldn't move. I should have said something, anything, but the loneliness I had been carrying for years pressed against my chest until I couldn't breathe. He took one hesitant step forward and kissed me. It was soft, almost unsure, like he was asking for permission. For a second, I froze. Then, without thinking, I let him. The city disappeared. The sound of rain faded. All I could feel was the warmth of his lips and the way my heart came alive after years of silence. When I finally pulled away, my voice shook as I whispered, "Just go with the flow. I'm enjoying this." And in that moment, I crossed a line I could never uncross. That night, as I drove home, guilt and desire tangled inside me. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. When I stepped inside the house, Mark was there, exactly where I had left him. "You're late," he said, not looking up from his phone. I smiled faintly and went upstairs. The mirror reflected a woman who was no longer innocent. A woman who had awakened something she didn't know she still had the power to feel. From that night forward, nothing was the same. The days that followed were filled with secret messages, fleeting glances, and the quiet electricity of forbidden connection. Ryan and I texted late at night. Simple words at first. "Did you make it home safe?" Turned into, "I can't stop thinking about you." Each message felt like a spark, and I couldn't put out the fire. At home, Mark started noticing my distraction. "You've been quiet lately," he said one evening, his fork pausing midair. "I'm just tired," I replied. I wasn't lying. I was tired. But not from work, from pretending. Ryan and I grew closer. The pull between us was magnetic. Every meeting, every accidental touch, every shared laugh pulled me further in. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves. It happened on a Sunday morning. The house was quiet. I was making breakfast when Mark called my name. His tone made my heart stop. I walked into the living room, and he was standing there, holding my phone. The screen glowed with a message from Ryan. "Last night was perfect." Mark read it aloud. His voice broke mid-sentence. The world around me collapsed. My chest tightened, and my vision blurred. He looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. "How long, Emma? How long have I been living with a stranger?" Tears filled my eyes. I tried to speak, but the words came out broken. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was lonely. I just needed to feel alive again. Mark's face fell. His voice trembled. "And you couldn't tell me that? You couldn't give me the chance to fix it?" I reached for him, but he stepped back. The distance between us was an ocean. That night, I sat in the bedroom alone while he paced downstairs. The house was quiet except for the sound of my own heartbeat. My phone buzzed again. Ryan. I couldn't bring myself to answer. When I finally saw him days later, he pulled me close, whispering, "It's going to be okay." But the fear in his eyes told me even he wasn't sure. The following weeks were chaos. Mark withdrew. I barely slept. Friends noticed. Neighbors whispered. And I kept thinking back to that rainy night. To the words I had whispered. Go with the flow. At the time, it had felt like freedom. Now, it sounded like surrender. Mark never shouted. He didn't throw things. His silence hurt more than anger ever could. Because it was the silence of someone who had loved deeply and been betrayed. In the end, I stood at a crossroads. I could chase the passion that had set my heart on fire, or I could try to rebuild the life I had broken. Neither choice promised happiness. I chose neither. I chose myself. I left my job, moved into a small apartment in the city, and started over. Some nights, I still thought of Ryan. Other nights, I thought of Mark. But most nights, I thought of the woman in the mirror, the one who had finally learned that love cannot fill the emptiness you refuse to face. And when it rains, I still remember. Not with regret, but with understanding. Because sometimes, the people who change your life aren't meant to stay. They're just meant to remind you what it feels like to be alive. Music fades gently. If this story touched your heart, tell me, have you ever met someone who made you feel alive again, even when you knew they couldn't stay? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe for more stories that speak to the heart.